It started as a dare on a humid summer night. 5 friends gathered in the basement of an old, creaky Victorian home in Kansas: Lena, Tyler, Jasmine, Marcus, and Amy. The lights flickered overhead as thunder rolled in the distance. Lena brought out the Ouija board she found at a flea market, claiming it was cursed. No one believed her until the board spelled out a name: Gray. They didn't know anyone by that name. Yet a sudden cold wind swept through the sealed room. Tyler said, "Did anyone else feel that?" Amy laughed nervously. "It's just the AC, right?" But the look in Marcus's eyes silenced them. He pointed. The planchette was moving again, untouched. It spelled Leavu. The board sat motionless now, as if it had never moved. But no one spoke. Lena's hand trembled as she reached for the planchette. "We have to keep going," she whispered. Tyler shook his head. "That thing just told us to leave, Lena." Jasmine muttered, "Maybe we should listen to it." The silence that followed was thicker than the humid air around them. Marcus said, "What if it's testing us? What if it wants to scare us into stopping?" Amy, always the skeptic, said, "We're not being haunted. We're just scaring ourselves." But Lena placed her fingers back on the planchette and asked, "Who are you?" It began to move again, slowly but with intent. Maria. Marcus blinked. "My grandmother's name was Maria, and she died in this house." The planchette continued its steady movement, spelling out Sheneverleft. Lena recoiled, her breath catching. Amy said, "This is stupid. Let's just end it." But the lights flickered again, and a low groaning noise echoed from the far end of the basement. Jasmine stood up. "What was that?" Her voice cracked. Tyler grabbed his phone flashlight and pointed it into the dark corner. Old boxes, furniture, nothing moved. But the sound came again, closer. Marcus whispered, "She died in the cellar." Everyone turned to him. "She was buried behind the wall." Lena gasped. The planchette moved again, this time violently, slamming to eyes. Tyler approached the far wall. His flashlight flickered. "There's something here," he said, running his hand over the brick. A deep scratching sound emerged from within the wall. Amy backed away. "Nope. No way." Marcus stepped forward, drawn like a moth to a flame. He pressed on a loose brick, and it shifted. Dust rained down. Behind the wall, they found a hollow space, a crumbling wooden box, barely visible. Inside, wrapped in rotting cloth, was a photo. Marcus took it out. The air grew frigid. In the faded photo stood a woman who looked exactly like Jasmine, wearing early 1900s clothes. On the back, one word was written: Maria. Jasmine staggered back, shaking her head. "That's not possible. That's not me." But the resemblance was undeniable. Amy whispered, "What if you're her descendant?" Jasmine said, "My mom was adopted. I never knew her family." Lena looked at the board again. "Ask it." Jasmine hesitated, then placed her fingers on the planchette. "Are you my family?" It moved. Yes. Jasmine looked sick. Marcus said, "Maybe that's why you look like her." Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut upstairs. Everyone jumped. A heavy thud echoed down the stairs. Then, footsteps. Slowly descending. Late October 1998, Tata. In a quiet Kentucky suburb, 16-year-old Emily and her 3 friends gathered in the attic of an old Victorian home that belonged to her grandmother. The attic smelled of cedarwood and forgotten memories, with dust dancing in the rays of moonlight through the single round window. "It's just a game," Kyle said, smirking as he unfolded the Ouija board. But his voice shook slightly, betraying the tension in the room. Candles flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to slither along the walls. As their fingers rested lightly on the planchette, Emily asked, "Is anyone there?" The board remained still for several seconds. Then, slowly, it slid to eyes. Laughter turned into stiff silence. "Who are you?" whispered Beth. The planchette moved again. "D-A-D." The attic air grew colder. The candle flames bent as if pulled by invisible breath. It wasn't a prank. Something had responded. Something ancient. Something watching. The air thickened. Emily felt her fingertips grow numb as the planchette slid again. This time, spelling. E-L-P. Kyle looked up, pale now. "This is messed up," he muttered. Emily asked, "What do you need help with?" Silence. Then, B-U-R-I-E-D. Beth shivered. "What if this is real?" she whispered. The board responded, P-E-L-L-R. The candles flickered more violently. A cold breeze blew through the attic, though no window was open. The shadows swirled unnaturally across the walls. "It's probably just a coincidence," James said, trying to rationalize. But no one believed that. The messages were too clear. Too intentional. A presence lingered in the room now, unseen but undeniable. The friends exchanged glances, equal parts fear and thrill. Against their better judgment, they agreed. They'd go check the cellar. The old cellar door groaned open. Dust poured down like sand as Emily pulled the chain to reveal the staircase. The air was damp and musty, smelling of earth and rot. Their flashlight beams quivered as they descended. The cement floor felt cold through their shoes. On the far wall, beneath loose bricks, Kyle noticed something strange, a discoloration in the stone. "Over here," he called. They began removing bricks, revealing a cavity behind the wall. Something wrapped in tattered fabric was stuffed inside. Emily hesitated, heart pounding. She reached in and pulled it out, a bundle of old bones, cracked and brittle. Beth screamed. A child's skull rolled free, eyes hollow. Then the flashlight cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. James yelled, "Turn it back on!" But no one could move. The cold returned. Stronger now, purposeful. Something had followed them into the dark. Beth backed against the wall, whispering a prayer. Emily clenched the bones, unsure whether to drop them or cradle them. Kyle turned, his face drained. "Someone's here," he whispered. A voice echoed softly, not from a person, but inside their heads. "Thank you," it said. Then the bones in Emily's hands began to tremble. She dropped them. The flashlight sparked back to life, illuminating a translucent child-shaped figure near the wall. Its eyes were black voids. It stared at them, not in anger, but in despair. "She was buried alive," Emily murmured, tears forming. Beth sobbed. The figure raised a hand, pointing toward the staircase. A final message, unspoken but clear: "Leave." Kyle turned first and bolted. Then James, then Beth. Emily looked back once. The girl's figure faded into mist. The cellar lights flickered. The air lifted. But something had changed in all of them. A shadow now lived in their memory. A week later, Emily sat alone in her bedroom, staring at the Ouija board she had hidden in her closet. She hadn't slept properly since that night. Dreams of the girl haunted her, whispers creeping in just as her eyes shut. The others refused to talk about it. Kyle changed schools. Beth moved away. James never returned her messages. Emily felt abandoned, but more than that, she felt cursed. That night she lit a single candle and asked one final question: "Is she at peace?" The planchette moved slowly. L-E-S. Then, seconds later, T-R-T-A-N-K-Y-O-U. Emily smiled faintly through tears. But before she could say anything, the candle blew out on its own. Darkness returned. A chill traced her spine. From the closet came a creak. Just one. Emily turned slowly. The board was still. But the air. It was not empty. In 2012, a group of college students in Arizona rented a desert Airbnb for spring break. It was remote, no neighbors, no signal, just dry wind and silence. Among them was Victor, an anthropology major obsessed with the occult. He'd brought along an antique Ouija board he claimed was carved from gravewood. That night, as they gathered on the patio under a moonless sky, Victor insisted they try it. "It's real, and it works," he said. His girlfriend Jenna hesitated but gave in. With 5 of them gathered, fingers barely touching the planchette, Victor asked, "Is anyone out here with us?" Nothing happened. Then it moved. "I am." No one spoke. "Where are you?" Jenna asked. The planchette responded, "BBEHIND." Everyone turned. Nothing. Just desert darkness. But Victor's face went pale. "Something just breathed on me," he whispered. Victor stood up, scanning the dark with a flashlight. "I swear I felt something," he said. The others laughed nervously, brushing it off. "Don't freak us out," said Chris, but his voice lacked conviction. Then the fire pit, long extinguished, flared up on its own for a brief second, just enough to make everyone jump. "That's not wind," said Jenna, gripping Victor's arm. They rushed back inside, locking the patio door. Victor set the board on the kitchen table and said, "Let's finish this." The others protested, but curiosity pulled them in. "Who are you?" Jenna asked again. Slowly the planchette moved. "I-O." Everyone looked at each other. "What does that mean?" Chris asked. Then it spelled out, "ALLOFYOU." A gust of wind banged every window at once. Lights flickered. The board spelled again, WATCHING. The lights went out. Total darkness. Jenna screamed. Victor grabbed a candle and lit it. The soft flame revealed the message now stretched across the board. STAEA. "It doesn't want us to leave," whispered Victor. "What if it's bluffing?" asked Chris. But as he stepped toward the door, it slammed shut by itself. "Nope," he yelled. A loud dragging noise echoed from the hallway. They turned their heads in sync, candlelight dancing on their faces. "That sounded like claws," whispered Jenna. Then, slow knocking, 4 taps, came from the front door. But when they checked, there was no one there. The door had no footprints outside, just dust. The board began vibrating. Victor whispered, "We should never have opened this door." Desperate, they tried to say goodbye on the board. The planchette didn't move. "We have to end it," Victor cried. Jenna said, "We never said goodbye before leaving the patio." Realization hit. The board never closed the connection. "Let's go back out," said Chris. The group hesitated, but fear of staying was worse. Outside, wind whipped the sand. They sat again, trembling. "We want to say goodbye," Victor said, pressing the planchette. It moved. "I know." Then, "IOU, MINE." Suddenly, the lantern burst, sending them into darkness. Something heavy moved around them. Breathing. Sand shifting. They screamed, running for the house, the sound of something unseen chasing them all the way. The board, left behind, spun its planchette wildly under the moonless sky. They left the next morning. No one spoke during the drive. Jenna refused to look out the windows. Victor threw the board into a canyon. "It's over," he said. But none of them truly believed it. Back at campus, things were never the same. Chris began talking in his sleep, always the same phrase, "It's watching." Jenna dropped out. Victor stopped attending class altogether. A month later, the Airbnb was delisted. "Rumor," said the owner, found symbols burned into the floorboards. That spring, Victor disappeared. His apartment was empty, except for the Ouija board, somehow returned, sitting in the center of the floor. One final message was carved into it. "I never left." The story spread online. Some say it's a hoax. But those who were there, they still sleep with the lights on. In 1975, a blizzard swept through a rural Minnesota town. Inside a wooden farmhouse, 12-year-old twins, Nathan and Nora, were snowed in with their great-aunt Louise. With no power and nothing to do, Louise offered a curious diversion. "This board has answers," she said, setting down an old faded Ouija board with burn marks along the edges. Nora, skeptical, asked, "What kind of answers?" Louise smiled faintly. "All kinds." As wind howled outside and candles flickered, the three placed their fingers on the planchette. "Are you there?" Nathan asked. It moved immediately. LLWAYS. Louise's face went pale. "That's not me," she said. Nora asked, "Who is this?" The answer sent a chill through them. BUBBTCHING. Then, without warning, all the candles blew out. The planchette trembled. Outside, something scraped against the window. Louise whispered, "We shouldn't have done this." The wind outside became deafening. Nora clung to Nathan's arm. "Make it stop," she cried. Louise reached for the planchette. "We need to close the session, say goodbye." But it wouldn't move. "Let go of it," Nathan shouted. They all pulled back. The planchette began to move on its own, spelling OPENED. Then came the whisper, distant yet unmistakable. "Mine now." The sound of glass breaking startled them. The front window had cracked from the center outward, though no object had hit it. Frost crawled up the walls like veins. Nora said, "We need to leave this room." But the door slammed shut and wouldn't budge. The board continued spelling words at random, faster and faster. "Never return. Cold. Alone." Louise fell to her knees and muttered a prayer. But nothing answered. The house was no longer just theirs. The temperature dropped below freezing. Breath fogged in the air. The firewood stack was gone. Nathan grabbed blankets and wrapped them around Nora. "We have to keep warm," he said. Louise stared blankly at the board. "It's not the board," she murmured. "It's the name. I used the name." Nora asked, "What name?" Louise swallowed hard. "The name I gave it when I was your age. I summoned him. I thought I controlled it." Nathan stepped forward. "Who?" Louise whispered, "Cramel." Suddenly the walls creaked and the candles flickered violently. From under the floorboards came a dragging sound. Louder. Closer. The air turned thick with sulfur and soot. Nora clutched her brother tighter. "We need to destroy it." Louise stood slowly. "If we do, it may take me instead." She didn't look afraid. She looked ready. Louise carried the board to the fireplace. "Go upstairs," she told the twins. "Don't come down until it's done." Nathan hesitated. "We're not leaving you." But Louise insisted. "This thing has followed me long enough." She threw the board into the flames. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fire screamed, an unnatural, piercing howl. Black smoke erupted, taking the shape of a man with no face. The entire room shook. "Upstairs," Nora screamed. "It's coming through the floor." Nathan pulled her toward the attic. Louise stood still, whispering the name over and over. The smoke figure grew arms, reaching for her. Then, all at once, it vanished. The fire settled. Silence fell. Nathan and Nora crept down, trembling. Louise lay unconscious, the board nothing but ashes. But carved into the floorboards were the words, "I'll wait." Years passed. Nathan and Nora never spoke of that night again. Louise never fully recovered. She often muttered to herself, staring into corners. After her death, the farmhouse was abandoned. In 1999, a local restoration crew entered the property. They laughed off the ghost stories. That was before the cold came back, before tools went missing, before one worker claimed to see a face in the fireplace. Eventually, the house was condemned. The twins, now adults, visited one last time. The structure was crumbling. Nathan whispered, "She saved us." Nora touched the fireplace mantel and found something burned into the stone. 3 letters, KRI. Her hand shook. It's still here, she whispered. That night, both twins had the same dream. Louise standing at the foot of their beds, mouthing the words, "Don't let him out again." In 1986, an orphanage outside of New Orleans housed a dozen forgotten children. Among them was Rosie, age 9, quiet and withdrawn. She spoke little except to an imaginary friend she called Maureen. Staff dismissed it, until Rosie found an old Ouija board in the basement and insisted it belonged to Maureen. One night, lightning crashed as Rosie led 3 curious girls, Tasha, Angie, and May, to the basement. "She wants to talk," Rosie said, setting the board between them. The girls hesitated, but joined her. As they touched the planchette, it moved instantly. Me. Angie pulled away. "You're moving it." Rosie shook her head. "She's mad you forgot her." Then the planchette spelled IRE. Confused, Tasha asked, "What fire?" Rosie's eyes widened. "The one that killed her." In the corner, a pile of old toys began to tremble. One doll slowly turned its head. No one had touched it. The air turned thick. Dust swirled despite the stillness. "I think she's mad," whispered Rosie. The board moved again. BBURN. Tasha asked, "Who burned?" The planchette paused, then spelled Amy. May began to cry. "Let's go." But the cellar door slammed shut above them. The light flickered. A singed smell filled the air. "She died down here," Rosie said. The matron locked her in during the fire. A low moan echoed from the stone walls. Angie stepped back and knocked over a toy chest. Out spilled charred photos, soot-stained stuffed animals. In one photo, a young girl with Rosie's eyes stood near the same board. "That's her," Rosie whispered. "She wants justice." From the far wall, scratch marks appeared, fresh and deep. "Let us out!" Tasha screamed. But the board moved again. "Stay." Rosie stood slowly. "She's not going to hurt us. She wants us to help her." The other girls hesitated, caught between fear and trust. Rosie touched the board again. "What do you want us to do?" The planchette spelled IFINDHER, find her? May asked. The board continued, UNDERFLOOR. With trembling hands, Angie pulled back a loose plank near the far corner. Beneath they found ashes and bones. A child's. Wrapped in singed cloth. Tasha covered her mouth in horror. Rosie reached in and placed her hand over the cloth. The air grew warmer. The board spelled THANKYOU. Then, without warning, the candles relit. The door creaked open. Rosie smiled, tears in her eyes. She's free now. But as they left, no one noticed the shadow watching from the toy chest. A second voice had been waiting too. Life at the orphanage changed after that night. The air felt lighter. Staff reported no more nightmares or cold spots. Rosie even began speaking more. But one day, Tasha found her in the basement again, talking to the board. "Who are you talking to?" she asked. Rosie looked up, pale. "Not Maureen. Someone else." The board spelled MSK. "What mask?" Tasha asked. "He wears faces," Rosie whispered. That night, May vanished from her bed. No broken windows. No signs of struggle. Just her doll, burned, sitting on her pillow. Panic gripped the orphanage. Rosie refused to speak again. She just stared into the dark corners of every room. Eventually she was taken away for treatment. Tasha would never forget her last words, "We let the wrong one out." Years later, Tasha, now a mother, returned to New Orleans and passed by the remains of the orphanage. It had long been abandoned, windows boarded, roof sagging. Yet something compelled her to stop. She peered through a crack in the wood and saw it, still there. The Ouija board, covered in dust, waiting. That night, she dreamed of Rosie. The little girl stood beside a dark figure wearing multiple faces, stitched together like masks. You left me, Rosie said. He didn't. Tasha woke screaming. On her nightstand was a small scorched doll, identical to the one from childhood. No one had entered her home. No explanation. Just the lingering smell of smoke and the whisper that followed her until dawn. Help me finish the game. In 2009, an urban exploration group called Grave Hunters entered an abandoned asylum on the outskirts of Detroit. The building was rumored to be cursed, patients vanished, staff committed suicide. Inside the main hall, dust choked the air, and graffiti covered the walls. In a forgotten patient room, they found a handmade Ouija board carved into the floor with nails forming letters. Let's try it, said Leader Mason, brushing away dirt. His girlfriend, Dani, hesitated. Why would someone carve this here? Still, they began. The planchette, a shard of broken mirror, moved fast. R-U-N. They laughed nervously. Is this a joke? Asked Derek. Then the door slammed shut. Their lantern flickered. Aruni, it repeated. Then again. The mirror planchette cracked as it hit the letter. In. Dani whispered, I don't think it's joking. Panic set in. They tried the door. It wouldn't budge. Kick it open, Mason shouted. Derek slammed against it to no effect. Something's behind it, he muttered. Dani turned to the Ouija symbols. What do you want? She asked. The mirror slid. O-U-L, who's you? She demanded. O-R-S. They backed away, breath visible in the sudden cold. Then came the scream, from inside the wall. It wasn't human. A violent bang echoed through the hall. The wall cracked. It's in the walls, April shrieked. The lantern died. In total darkness, something scraped across the ceiling above them, metal on concrete. Mason lit his lighter. For a split second, a pale face hung upside down from the rafters, watching. Then gone. Dani screamed, we need to end it, now. Using the broken planchette, Dani traced goodbye into the floorboards. Let's just end it. She forced everyone's hands back on the mirror shard. The room felt like it was breathing. Say it with me, she said. Goodbye. As they spoke the word, the floor shuddered. The wall crack stopped growing. Silence returned. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the mirror shattered completely, slicing Mason's palm. He screamed. Blood hit the letters. Instantly, the wall behind them began to bleed, thick, black-red fluid seeping from the cracks. We didn't close it, Dani cried. We fed it. A handprint smeared in blood spread across the wall. We have to destroy the board, she shouted. Derek grabbed the shard and began scraping at the letters, but the nails began to rise on their own. Derek screamed as one of the nails embedded itself into his shoulder. It's alive, Mason yelled, grabbing a pipe and smashing the floor. The letters cracked but didn't break. Dani dropped to her knees. We need to give it something. Her voice was raw. Take me instead. The room fell silent. The air went still. The mirror pieces floated mid-air for a moment, glowing faintly. Then they dropped. The nails stilled. The bleeding stopped. Dani collapsed. Mason caught her, trembling. Dani, say something. Her eyes opened slowly. It chose me. Mason protested, but she smiled sadly. Run. Now. The others fled, dragging Dani behind. As they reached the exit, the doors flung open. They didn't look back. The asylum groaned one last time, then fell quiet. Too quiet. Weeks later, Mason visited Dani in a psychiatric facility. She hadn't spoken since that night. Doctors said her vitals were fine, but her mind was elsewhere. Mason brought her a photo from the asylum, taken years before. This is where it started, he said. Dani finally spoke. He was in the walls before they built them. Mason frowned. Who? Dani smiled faintly. The thing that lives beneath questions. Before he could ask more, she turned her head and whispered, He's still listening. Mason looked behind him, but no one was there. That night, security footage showed Dani writing on her wall in blood, "I'm still playing." The mirror in her room cracked from the inside. No one ever visited again. But sometimes late at night, the guards say they hear whispering from her room, asking softly, "Want to play?" In 2023, a viral TikTok trend revived the Ouija board for a new generation. One influencer, Lana Ray, known for her dark aesthetics, decided to live stream a real session for her millions of followers. "Let's summon something," she said, smiling as the camera rolled. She used a vintage board from an estate sale, one rumored to be ritually sealed. Alone in her apartment, candlelight flickering around her, Lana asked, "Is anyone here with me?" The planchette trembled slightly, spelling HELOO. Comments flooded in, "This is fake, creepy, try asking its name." Lana leaned closer. "What's your name?" The answer came slowly. "MNE." She laughed nervously. "Okay, who do you belong to?" The planchette paused, then moved with sudden speed. "Oh, you!" Her smile faded. The lights dimmed. Her reflection in the window moved, but she hadn't. Lana tried to play it off as a glitch. "That's just the lighting," she told her stream, voice wavering. But the comments turned frantic. "Behind you." The reflection moved. "Get out." She turned, saw nothing, until her reflection tilted its head on its own. "No," she whispered. The stream cut to static. Her phone shut off. Darkness took over. Lana ran to turn on the lights, but none responded. "Stop messing around," she screamed. A whisper echoed from her phone speaker. "Though it was off, you ask?" In the mirror, her reflection began bleeding from the eyes. Lana covered her mouth, stepping back. From the board came the sound of nails tapping wood, rhythmic, steady. She turned. The planchette spelled STOI. She grabbed the board to throw it, but her fingers wouldn't let go. They were frozen. The sound of scratching filled the air, walls, floor, even inside her closet. Lana screamed and finally ripped her hands away from the board, skin tearing slightly. She ran to her bedroom door. Locked. "Let me out," she cried. In the mirror, her reflection moved again, smiling now, wicked and still. It mouthed a word, "Trade." Suddenly, the candles flared, blinding white. Lana collapsed. When she opened her eyes, her reflection was gone. Not standing there. Gone. Now. Instead, she saw the empty room behind her. She turned slowly. The Ouija board was burning. Her reflection returned, but it blinked independently. "It's not me," she whispered. Then her reflection mouthed, "I am?" From behind her, the planchette flew across the room, slamming into the wall like a thrown blade. Lana vanished from social media. Her channel remained silent, frozen, with a single 3-second clip uploaded weeks later. It showed only the Ouija board in an empty apartment, the planchette spelling SWAP. Viewers assumed it was a prank. But those close to her knew she hadn't answered texts. Her apartment lease was cancelled. Her landlord found everything as she'd left it, except the mirror. It had shattered inward. Police reports mentioned no signs of struggle, but they never saw what the live streams saw. In a Discord server, someone shared screenshots of the moment her reflection first smiled. Zooming in, they saw something. Behind the mirrored version of Lana, a dark figure with hollow eyes and a stitched mouth. "It was always waiting," the caption read. And she let it out. Clip spread across the internet. People played it as a joke, until they began seeing things too. Glitches in reflections. Planchettes moving on their own. One user messaged, "Every time I pause the clip, the figure's closer." Soon after, that account disappeared. Urban legends blossomed. Don't watch after midnight, never ask its name, always say goodbye. But people never learn. The board keeps appearing, on sidewalks, in schools, inside unopened closets. Just a game, they say. But those who summon it never close the door properly. The final frame of Lana's clip now loops endlessly, her face smiling in that twisted, vacant way. A whisper embedded in the audio file, only audible when played backward. "You're next." And somewhere, unseen, the planchette moves once more.